Keep watching The Politics every Friday, 12 p.m. Eastern Time on New York Parrot TV, the voice for humanity. Keep watching The Politics every Friday, 12 p.m. Eastern Time on New York Parrot TV, the voice for humanity.
Okay, let's try it again. Welcome to the show, Talking Politics. My name is Robert Press, the host of the show. I am a reporter for the Bronx Chronicle. Here is my official New York City press card. I also write for the Co-op City News and Parkchester Times, which is owned by Muslim media, as is this show. As you saw, we had a little technical problem again at the beginning of this show, but I've realized that the problem is on my end. And I was on the phone for a half hour with Optimum this morning, and I have to go to their store and get a new cable box. So it seems that most of the problem has been on my end. But let's get into the show right now. As for our weather, today will be nice with a high in the low 70s. Saturday and Sunday will be even nicer with the temperature getting up into the upper 70s. And however, it looks like rain will be coming back to the area on Monday. It appears that a lot has gone on these past few days, and it does not look good for Mayor Adams, which I'll get into in the second half of the show, or President Joe Biden, whose son Hunter was indicted yesterday in a Delaware court by the special counsel, the Attorney General of Delaware, David Weiss. So let's get into that. First son, Hunter Biden, was indicted yesterday in a Delaware court by the special counsel, David Weiss, on 3 counts related to lying about being addicted to crack cocaine when he bought a gun nearly 5 years ago. The charges carry up to 25 years in prison and could be the first of multiple criminal cases against Hunter, who now is 53 years old. He may also be facing tax fraud and illegal foreign lobbying counts in D.C. and Washington. The indictment accuses Hunter Biden of lying about his drug use on a gun purchase in 2018 when he bought a Cobra revolver. He wrote in his 2021 memoir, Beautiful Things, that he was abusing drugs at the time. The 3 counts relate to violating federal laws governing gun ownership, lying to authority figures, and interstate commerce. Hunter in July walked away from a plea deal that would have granted him 2 years of probation for failing to pay more than $2 million in taxes on foreign income from countries such as China and Ukraine. As part of that deal, Hunter would have admitted to the gun offense, but it would have been expunged after the completion of probation. The first son's legal team is expected to argue that the diversion agreement remains in effect for the gun offense. The new charges were filed 2 days after House Speaker Kevin McCarthy announced an impeachment inquiry into President Biden's involvement in his family's overseas business dealings, which centered on Hunter and his brother, James Biden. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy's decision to open the impeachment inquiry into Biden reflected the substantial political pressure he is facing from the right-wing members of Congress who have threatened to depose him if he fails to do their bidding. House Oversight Committee Chair James Comer said Tuesday the panel would subpoena the bank records of Hunter and James Biden, including to determine whether any foreign funds flowed to the president. White House spokesman Ian Sams declined to comment on the indictment, saying, "We would refer you to Hunter's personal representatives or to the Justice Department." Like I said, House Republicans are making their first official move for to ask Hunter's attorneys for documents on Wednesday related to the defunct plea agreement, while 2 sources told CNN, laying the groundwork for a potential subpoena down the line. The request for documents marks a new chapter for the House Oversight, Judiciary, and Ways and Means Committee, which has been investigating Hunter Biden's dealings for months without turning up any direct evidence that pinpoints wrongdoing. Should you refuse to provide the committee with the requested information because of any purported privilege, the committee may ask to seek testimony from you and or Hunter Biden regarding the disclosure of documents and communications. The letter from the committee chairs to Hunter Biden's lawyers read. Their request focused on a series of communications between Weiss and other DOJ officials regarding the potential gun and tax-related charges against Hunter Biden, drafts of the proposed plea agreement and immunity language, emails between Hunter Biden's attorneys, the New York Times, and Political, among other materials. The House committee has given Hunter Biden's attorneys until September 20th to respond. Meanwhile, First Lady Jill Biden tested positive for COVID last Monday evening and is currently experiencing only mild symptoms, according to the White House doctor. The First Lady, will remain at home while her communications director, Elizabeth Alexander, said in the statement she has been vaccinated and received boosters. So if she's been vaccinated and has received boosters, how did the First Lady get COVID-19? This apparently, though, is not the first time she's had it. This is her second COVID diagnosis. She first tested positive in August 2022, shortly after President Joe Biden tested positive for the virus. The president, who tested negative for COVID this time, took a solo trip back from D.C. to Delaware. The couple had been staying at their vacation home over the weekend, last weekend, after visiting Florida together to tour some of the damage in the wake of the hurricane that happened down there. However, if we look at President Biden's last press conference, I don't know if he pulled a Mitch McConnell at that press conference, which happened on Tuesday, but the press conference suddenly had to be ended as President Biden was losing a little bit in the press conference and not wanting to take any questions at all. So, it could be that maybe that disease is spreading throughout Washington, the freeze up that we don't know what we're doing. As far as the world goes, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un called his country's relationship with Russia his top priority and pledged full support to President Vladimir Putin and his government as the leaders met for the first time in years recently, this past week. In Libya, more than 5,000 people were killed after torrential rains caused two dams to burst near the coast city of Derna, destroying much of the city and carrying entire neighborhoods into the sea, local authorities said. Now, let's get to those 5 Memphis police officers who were charged with federal rights conspiracy and obstruction violations in connection with the death of Tyree Nichols. While a federal grand jury in Memphis, Tennessee, returned an indictment charging 5 former Memphis police officers, MPD detectives, with federal civil rights conspiracy and obstruction offenses resulting in the death of Tyree Nichols on January 7th. According to the 4-count indictment, all 5 defendants, and I won't name the police officers, willfully deprived Nichols of his constitutional rights. The first count of the indictment alleges that the defendants aided and abetted one another, violating Nichols' rights to free speech from the use of unreasonable force by a police officer by assaulting him and failing to intervene in the unlawful assault. Count 1 also alleges this assault resulted in bodily injury and the death of Nichols. Count 2 of the indictment alleges all 5 defendants violated Nichols' right to be free from law enforcement officers' deliberate indifference to his serious medical needs. Specifically, it says that even though the defendants knew Nichols had a serious medical need, they willfully disregarded that by failing to render medical aid and failing to advise the MPD, dispatcher, Memphis Police Department, and emergency medical personnel of the circumstances surrounding Nichols' special needs. Count 2 also alleges this offense resulted in the injury and death of Nichols. Count 3 also alleges that they covered up their unlawful force by omitting materials in their report. Specifically, the indictment outlines overt acts by the defendants committed in furtherance of the conspiracy, including, among other things, failing to tell the Memphis Police and Fire Department personnel that they had struck Nichols and that the defendants had discussed hitting Nichols with straight haymakers and taking turns hitting him further. The indictment alleges the defendants provided false and misleading information to the two Memphis Police Department officers tasked with the writing reports about Nichols' arrest. Finally, it alleges that the defendant submitted response to resist reports that contained false and misleading information and omitted the defendants had assaulted Nichols. Count 4 of the indictment alleges the defendants committed an obstruction offense by intentionally omitting material information, providing false and misleading information to the two MPD officers tasked with writing the reports about the arrest of Nichols. Counts 1 and 2 carry a maximum penalty of life in prison. Counts 3 and 4 carry a maximum penalty of 20 years in prison. These charges will be taken up in a federal court, and an indictment is merely an allegation. All defendants are presumed innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt in a court of law. Now, here's something about a marijuana dispensary owner convicted of tax evasion and obstructing the IRS. Gee, here New York State is opening up all these marijuana dispensaries thinking that they're going to get all of this money from these guys. Well, here's a story about a Michigan marijuana dispensary owner. A federal court in Detroit found a Michigan man guilty of evading federal taxes, income taxes, and obstructing the IRS, among other charges. According to court documents and evidence presented at trial, Ryan Richmond of Bloomfield, owner and operator of the marijuana dispensary Relief Choices LLC in Warren, Michigan, from 2011 through 2014, Richmond had Relief Choices pay its operating expenses extensively in cash and routed customer credit card payments through an unrelated third-party bank account to conceal his true business gross receipts. In 2015 and 2016, Richmond obstructed the IRS by misleading investigators and particularly an IRS auditor examining his individual account income taxes and about his knowledge of roll-in and profits derived from the Relief Choices operation. Richmond caused a tax loss to the IRS of more than $1.15 million. Richmond is scheduled to be sentenced on December 13th. He faces a statutory maximum penalty of 5 years in prison for each count of tax evasion, 3 years in prison for obstructing the IRS, 1 year in prison for the willful failure to file a tax return count. He also faces a period of supervised release, restitution of the monetary penalties. Federal district court will determine any sentence after considering the U.S. sentencing guidelines and other statutory factors. Now, I wonder if this can happen in New York, since it's going to be a cash business. Are we going to have, well, let's put the money in a drawer here, we'll count it later, and oh, well, we didn't make that much to the federal, to the state. We only made $10,000 instead of $50,000 because the other $40,000 are in a little box over there that we're not reporting to you. Okay? Yeah, they're really going to be on top of it here in New York State, just like everything else. You know, you have people driving without licenses, without insurance. Yeah, so New York State is really going to be on top of getting all their tax money from these marijuana dispensaries. I'll bet you 10 to 1 they don't. Okay. There was a police shooting in the Bronx on September 9th, and New York's Attorney General's Office of Special Investigation has opened an investigation into the death of a civilian who died that night following an encounter with the members of the New York City Police Department here in the Bronx. On the afternoon of September 19th, 2 NYPD officers responded to a convenience store located on East Tremont Avenue in Throgs Neck. Shortly after officers arrived, they encountered an individual who allegedly advanced towards one of them with a knife, and the officer fired his service weapon in response. The individual was taken to a local hospital where he was pronounced dead. Officers recovered knives at the scene. Pursuant to New York State Executive Law 70-B, OSI assesses every incident reported to it where a police officer or a peace officer, including correctional officers, may have caused the death of a person by act or omission. Under the law, the officer may be on duty or off duty, and the decedent may be armed or unarmed. Also, the decedent may or may not be in custody or incarcerated. If OSI's assessment indicates an officer may have caused the death, OSI proceeds to conduct a full investigation of this incident. These are preliminary facts, and they will come out afterwards. They are also, the Attorney General's office is also investigating another shooting that occurred, I believe, in the South Bronx, somewhere on 3rd Avenue. And it was proven in that case that the shooting was justified because there was a gun in the perpetrator's hand who was about to shoot the police officer. So let's stop right here and go to a commercial right now. And I'll be back with more, including the Eric Ulrich indictment and what it may be doing to Mayor Adams. Let's go to a commercial.
Do you know that there is a publishing company that wants to make life easier for you as a writer? This publishing company is called World Inkers Printing and Publishing. We publish in all different languages, and we're looking for writers of all genres, all formats. We're looking for scholars, ghostwriters, playwrights, poets, short fiction, novelists, you name it. We're looking for anybody who is interested in writing and the craft of writing to be in touch with us. You can reach us at info.worldinkers@gmail.com. With World Inkers Printing and Publishing, you do not require a lot of money to publish with us. Contact us today at info.worldinkers@gmail.com. Become a winner with other authors at World Inkers Printing and Publishing. Give us a shot. We will surely finish you.
Okay, welcome back to the show. Before I get into the Eric Ulrich indictment, I must note that I remember reading about a year ago that there was a statement, I don't know if it was from Mayor Adams himself or from his office, to Eric Ulrich, be careful what you say on your phone. And this indictment will read into that because over the past 2 years, the New York City County District Attorney's Office, that's DA Bragg, assisted in the New York City Department investigation, have been investigating the conduct of Eric Ulrich. This investigation uncovered that Ulrich, a former New York City councilman for District 32 in Queens from 2009 to 2021, also a former senior advisor to Mayor Adams, January 2022 to April 22, and the former New York City Department of Buildings Commissioner, May 22 to November 2022, used his authority and influence in those positions to benefit certain people, including entities owned or controlled by them and others known and unknown, in exchange for money and gifts, including a premium season ticket package to the Mets baseball season, a bespoke suit, artwork, and a discounted apartment and certain amenities in a beachfront building in Rockaway, Queens. Ulrich was intercepted between November 2021, November 2022, on almost a daily basis, engaging in conduct anti-ethical to his oath in office. Ulrich regularly offered to use and used his authority to act as senior city officials to benefit his co-conspirators and himself. Tellingly, Ulrich's alleged graft was not limited by type of government services performed, upon whom it was confirmed, or how Ulrich was paid. The charged conduct, which spans 5 indictments, involves promises to perform services ranging from expedited inspections to contract steering. 4 different conspiracies and 5 co-conspirators are being promised such services. Payments to Ulrich in cash, artwork, the clothing, premium Mets season ticket package, and discounted real estate. In total, Ulrich received more than $150,000 in benefits related to the bribery schemes. Now, here we go. Indictment 73765/23. Since at least 2017, Ulrich, while in public office, solicited and received tens of thousands of dollars from multiple sources, including these 5 co-conspirators. Ulrich used that money, among other things, to fund his gambling at public casinos, as well as private illegal gambling clubs, an illegal gambling club located at 89-02 101st Avenue, Ozone Park, New York, called the 89th Street Cafe, which is owned and operated by one of the co-conspirators. Ulrich omitted the additional income from his annual financial disclosures, which he was required to file with the New York City Conflicts of Interest Board pursuant to city law. Ulrich is now charged with 5 counts of offering a false instrument for filing in the first degree in violation of the New York State Penal Law 175.35 relating to those material omissions from his COIB financial disclosure forms for calendar years 2017 through 2021. Indictment 73767/23. This indictment charges Ulrich and four of the five co-conspirators with conspiring with one another and others known and unknown to use Ulrich's authority and his government positions to benefit three of his co-conspirators in exchange for money and gifts they gave Ulrich. As part of this conspiracy, Ulrich provided his co-conspirators access to high-ranking New York City government officials by inviting three of them to exclusive events and dinners to demonstrate to them that he could deliver on promises he had made. These promises, among other things, included delaying and amending the bidding process related to the New York City commercial waste zone, resolving licensing issues with the Department of Consumer and Workers Protection on behalf of Mike's Heavy Duty Towing Incorporation, a company controlled by one of the defendants. Now, it's interesting that the Department of Consumer and Workers Protection comes up because that is City Councilwoman Marjorie Velazquez's committee that she chairs. And whether she was involved in this or not, because council members are always friends with each other, including former council members. So I will have to ask Councilwoman Velazquez next time I see her if she was involved in this, and I know what she's going to say. No comment or don't bother me. But let's continue. Ulrich is charged with expediting and coordinating inspections among various New York City agencies on behalf of his co-conspirators, influencing city appointments in favor of the co-conspirators, New York City government employee for co-conspirators and their family members, including positions for two of the co-conspirators' daughters. Indictment 73769/23. This indictment charges Ulrich and the developer with conspiring with one another and others known and unknown to use Ulrich's authority in his government position to help this developer and his company, the Marcal Group, with their development projects in exchange for the developer giving Ulrich a discounted beachfront apartment and other benefits in one of the developer's buildings. As part of the conspiracy, Ulrich agreed to use his apparent authority as senior advisor to the mayor to attempt to influence the Department of City Planning to advance a beachfront development project at 155 Beach 115th Street in Rockaway Park, New York. The developer submitted an updated proposal for the property to the Department of City Planning Director in February 2022, shortly after both Ulrich and the director joined the Adams administration. In March 2022, the developer was still in negotiation with City Planning. Ulrich told the developer in some substances that he needed to find a place to live, and the developer agreed to figure something out. Ultimately, the developer offered Ulrich an apartment and beachfront property in Rockaway Park. The deal offered Ulrich an apartment there at a discounted rate of $2,000 per month for a two-bedroom, partially furnished apartment, the lowest in the building at the time. The developer also offered Ulrich the option to purchase the unit for $55,000 below the list price and apply the first year's rent, $24,000, towards the down payment and to cover closing costs, the value of approximately of $100,000 to Ulrich. Indictment 73762-23. This indictment charges Ulrich and one other person in one of the co-conspirators, a DOB filing representative, with conspiring with each other and known and unknown to use Ulrich's authority and his government position to benefit this person's clients who have business before the Department of Buildings in exchange for money and gifts from this person, including a bespoke suit and artwork. Ulrich and this person are also charged with crimes of bribery, receiving bribery, respectively, as outlined in the indictment, the full 10-page indictment. And the last indictment, the fifth one, indictment number 73768/23. This indictment charges Ulrich with one count of bribery receiving in third degree and a former New York City corrections officer with one count of bribery in third degree relating to Ulrich's intervention with a former DEP commissioner to hire this guy's one of his co-conspirators' family members in exchange for money. The co-conspirator gave Ulrich before and after one of his positions for the person's daughter was secured. from 2021 to 2022. This co-conspirator paid Ulrich at least $3,650, including a payment of $400 on February 23rd, 2022. The same day, Ulrich informed this co-conspirator that his nephew was hired. The 5 indictments run from 10 to 13 pages each. It would take me over an hour to read all of them. So let me just get on to a couple other things. As far as the first day of school, Mayor Adams came to PS 121 in the Allerton section of the Bronx to welcome back students and staff. With him was Mayor Chancellor David Banks, UFT President Mulgrew, the borough president, State Senator Bailey, Assemblyman Benedetto, and the local councilwoman. While the school is in Assemblyman John Sakara Jr.'s district, the good father that he is was taking his 3 children to 2 different schools when I asked him why he wasn't there. There are 4 things to watch, though, heading into this new school year. I know I was on the Chancellor's Parent Advisory Council. There were 1.2 million school children. There are now only 900,000 school children in the public schools, but that is not because of charter schools. Because of the pandemic, many families moved away from the New York area. So this year, there are 21,000 newly arrived asylum-seeking students that have enrolled in New York City schools since last summer. There are reading changes to the reading curriculum, and Mayor Adams and School Chancellor Banks says it is no reason why that the students constantly are unable to read. More than half of the students are not reading at grade level, it was said by the mayor, and this is something that they have a new plan to do that. Also, there is the end of the pandemic relief funds. One of the big questions this year is pegged that the $7 billion in federal COVID-19 relief funds that New York City schools received during the pandemic to help the school system recover. While the funds were instrumental to the reopening of schools, city officials also used much of that one-time relief funding to expand their Kickstart popular program, and these funds are now running out. Also, though, the 4th one was the impending bus strike, which has been averted for the time being, but it is not to say that the bus drivers will wildcat and go out on strike one day. As far as the immigrant crisis, Mayor Adams says he sees no end to the immigrant crisis, that it may destroy the city. It will be a $12 billion deficit by fiscal year 2025 due to the continued influx of migrants. There are about 2,000 migrants coming every month, Mayor Adams says, and that he will have to cut services. He's already asked for a cut of 5%, and he is now saying that by fiscal year 2025, he may have to cut 15% total from the budget. All right. He's announced that there is a 3-week sprint to identify asylum seekers in the city's care who are currently eligible to apply for work authorization, using his staff at emergency sites, the nearly 40,000 asylum seekers over the age of 18 in the city's cares, and 10,000 adult asylum seekers in care to see if they are eligible to work legally in the United States. However, there's a problem of getting them their official federal work permits. It's also been reported that the Biden administration has suggested the solution to New York City's migrant crisis is eliminating the city's right to shelter, according to city and state officials and business leaders who have been involved in discussions with the White House. Then again, there is the ongoing name-calling between Mayor Adams and Curtis Sliwa, and Sliwa says he will be challenging the swagger man in 2025, the next mayoral election. They quipped on August 29th at City Hall when asked during a press conference, Curtis Sliwa, who is that, about his former mayoral appointment? Anytime you start out with the question with the name Curtis Sliwa, that itself states it would be a disservice to me in New Yorkers to even respond. Adams said, if you look in the dictionary, the word buffoon, tell me what picture comes up. Sliwa, the Guardian Agents founder, fired back at Adams. I have always said that he is swagger man without a plan. The Republican Sliwa pointed out that he plans to challenge Adams again in 2025. And I am just about out of time. So the last thing that Sliwa said is that I know you can't find Staten Island without a GPS, but in 2 years, I'm coming after you, Eric Adams. Sliwa said at a rally opposing a migrant center in Staten Island. However, Mayor Adams was just in Staten Island yesterday announcing a new economic proposal for Staten Island and rebuilding the waterfront over there. And I am out of time, so I am going to have to end it right here. There was plenty more for me to have here. I have pages and pages of information, but I am out of time. So let me say goodbye and thank you for watching. Thank you for your comments. I was unable to read it, Kevin, unfortunately. And let me sign off right now and say again, once again, thank you for watching. I will see you next week.
In a world where the quality of information available to poorer communities is doctored, tainted, and sometimes regressive, where the words fake news have come to mean other people's opinions, it is vital to rely on news platforms with journalists who have feet on the ground and can report the truth. New York Parrot, a New York-based national and global news outlet, is changing the narratives of media operations. We focus on the news that matters, like self-empowerment, entrepreneurship, finances, health, security, politics, and more. We strive to curb violence